Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to be able to talk with you today. I hope all of you are doing well. We're, of course, concerned about everybody's health and everybody's safety. Michael and I are doing fine, thank God. And I'm continuing to keep everyone in my prayers. I wanted to share with you today some thoughts I had about a time when I was first a pastor. My first appointment back in 2004 after I graduated seminary. I, at that time, stepped away from nursing, thinking I would pastor full-time for the rest of my career, rest of my working life. And I was given first, because of course, even though of my age, I was in my 40s, late 40s, no, I was 50 at the time, I think, 49 at the time. I had to start at the bottom of the ladder, and that meant two little small rural churches out in the prairie of southwest Louisiana, very close to the Texas border. You don't think about Louisiana having prairies, but believe me, we do have this very flat, very flat land. I'll be honest with you, I thought where I came from, down by New Orleans, was flat. And it was, but it wasn't solid land. We kept having, there was the river and the bayous and the swamps, and they were all around us. But here it is nothing out there as we get toward the Texas border. Near Jennings, Louisiana is the name of the town, but it's actually about halfway between Lafayette and Lake Charles. And it was right on the interstate, I-20. But anyway, I was given two churches. Both of them, each of them had a congregation of one had a congregation of about 150 people, and the other of about 120. And I was pastor of both churches. Now, of course, when you have two churches to cover, you got to get from point A to point B on Sunday morning in order to do your services. One church had services at 9:30. That was the one where I lived at the parsonage, where my parsonage was located. And then it was about a 15-minute drive, under usual circumstances, to the second church, which was a little further south. I can actually tell you it was 4 miles east, 4 miles west, and 10 miles south of 11 miles south where I was. And the reason I can tell you exactly how many miles it was because this land was so flat that all the roads were set up on plot lines, like you get, they were all due east, due north-south, or due east-west. And every 5 miles you had an asphalt road, and every 1 mile you had a dirt road. And that's how things were laid out. So people used to always say, oh, you go 5 miles this way, 3 miles that way. And that's how they would talk about distances there. It was kind of a new thing for me. But I have to admit, it was my 2-lane blacktop road, the asphalt road that I took to get from my church in Raymond down to my church in Roanoke, Louisiana. It was just 2 lanes, and I rarely saw any traffic as I went. And I have to admit, there were some Sundays when I would get to thinking about the sermon I just preached and how the service went and what I could do better when I got down to Roanoke, or what I needed to do different, because the churches were very different. They had very different personalities. It's kind of amazing. But anyway, the thing is, about halfway down that long 11-mile stretch, remember I told you I went 11 miles south? About halfway down, there's a huge oak tree. Not many trees in prairie land, only a few. Most of the time they're there because old houses were there. It was an old house place. Well, this is a beautiful, huge live oak tree. But the thing about that tree is that very often a sheriff's deputy would be sitting there in the shade of that tree and would be doing speed, and it would be a speed trap. So it got to the point where I didn't even have to wait to see whether there was a car sitting under that tree or not. It became automatic. The minute I saw that tree, I checked my speed, and if I needed to, I slowed down. It's amazing how easy it is to treat it like it was interstate, just because it was 2 lanes and there was nobody around, and it was straight and it was flat, and I was preoccupied or in a hurry. But when you're driving, you're not supposed to be that way. A very good definition of integrity that I've heard is integrity is what you do when nobody's looking. And I have to admit, by my actions, what I was doing when nobody was looking was obviously I wasn't paying attention to the speed limit. Otherwise, I wouldn't have automatically checked my speed and most of the time had to slow down as I approached that big old oak tree standing there. Yeah, I think we're all like that. It's easy to get tied up in the things we do. It's easy to cut corners. It's easy to forget about the details. I remember my seminary was very close I went to Asbury Seminary in Wilmore, Kentucky. And right close to there was a large Shaker settlement. Of course, there were no Shakers there anymore. Last I knew, there were only a few Shakers, like 3 or 4 in the world. They had decided to stop accepting people, as far as I know. And but one thing, the Shakers were very, very. The Shaker settlement there had been turned into a living museum. And it talked about the life of the Shakers and what their religious beliefs were. And one of the things that they were really valued for was the fact that they looked on every single job they did, no matter how small, they did for the glory of God. And therefore it had to be done to the best of their ability. That's why Shaker furniture was so highly valued. There was craftsmanship. It was simple. But there was extreme craftsmanship in the way the joints fitted and the way it worked. The same thing was true on even the brooms they made, and the clothes they made were very highly valued because they would outwear machine-made clothes 3 times over. It was only when machine-made clothes got so cheap that making clothes became something they no longer did. No, they took great pride in their work, and they tried to keep conscious of the fact that God was always with them, and not cut corners. It's a very important lesson, because I remember a scripture that tells us where Paul is witnessing in Acts, and he says to them that they are here sharing their message. They stand as they are doing this, they stand in the presence of God, who is always with them. And I think for us to remember we always stand in God's presence is really important, even when we're alone. Because in that sense of integrity, we're never alone. God is always, always with us. When Michael graduated from high school, the person who addressed this high school class, and I don't remember the man's name, he read a prayer, advice, whatever you want to say it is, written by Mother Teresa. It's actually found she painted it on the walls. It's on the wall of her children's home in Calcutta. And it's very good advice for all of us. It's the way Christians should be. I guess it doesn't have a lot, it has a sense to do with integrity. When you consider that integrity means that there's a consistency between what you say and what you do. That all of that is an integral part of who you are, and that you are well integrated. And you're someone who follows through on the things they say they believe. Well, Mother Teresa has this beautiful poem I'd like to share with you now. She says, "People are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unsuccessful, unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some may be jealous. But be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten, but do good anyway. Give the best you have, and it will never be enough, but always give your best anyway. Because in the final analysis, it was always between you and God, and never between you and them anyway. May we all aspire to live by the guidance given here. It's good advice. I hope and pray all of you are doing well. And I ask that you keep me in your prayers as I keep you. May God bless you. Amen. I'll talk to you again soon.